We got some baseball tonight. Of course, we will pick up the Yankees and Astros right after the show at 6 o'clock today. We'll pick up the end of that game. And then the Nationals, one win away from the World Series. And that game is later tonight. We could have the National League entry. Jared Diamond, Wall Street Journal national baseball writer, is with us to talk a little baseball. We'll also get his thoughts on the Phillies job as well. Jared, thanks for coming back on the show. How are you, pal?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, man. And, well, let's get into the Nationals first. One win away from the World Series, 12 strikeouts. Strasburg was awesome. The pitching's been great. They've been the best team in baseball, really, since that 19-31 stretch. What has changed with the Nats that now everybody's looking at them as potentially a favorite to win the World Series?
Yeah, if you've watched them play in this postseason, and especially in this series, it's hard to see anything else but a team that can compete with anybody in baseball. And the reality is, like you mentioned, they have been competing with everybody in baseball since Memorial Day. At this point, they've been great for so long that you almost start wondering if the better question is, how did they start 19-31? Because they've now been phenomenal since the middle to end of May. I think they're 81-40 or some crazy record like that over that span. And you see this pitching and what they've done against the Cardinals. It is just remarkable what we've seen from Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg and even Anibal Sanchez. Those three in this series have not given up a single earned run yet in 3 games, and they're going to be running out Patrick Corbin tonight. You sort of feel like if they're able to close this thing out, especially if they're able to close it out quickly and could line up their pitching, this is a rotation that could shut down any lineup, whether it's the Yankees or the Astros.
It feels like, Jared, whenever the Nats, and you can probably say this about the Astros and their big three, but when they can get a win or a performance like they got from Anibal Sanchez the other night, on a night when they're not throwing out Scherzer or not throwing out Strasburg, that's such a huge win. It's like a house money type of win for that team. And not only does Sanchez go out and pitch well, but he carries the no-hitter for that long into the ninth. That right now, to me, is the big difference, is that compared to the Cardinals who just aren't hitting, also that the Nationals able to get some good pitching from guys not named Scherzer or Strasburg is really going to help them.
Yeah, the Cardinals were really done in this series after Game 1.
Yeah.
Game 1 was sort of the game the Cardinals had to win. It was clear going in. Like, hey, if you're going to beat this team, you have to beat Anibal Sanchez, because you probably aren't going to beat those other guys. And Sanchez pitched longer and better than the other two somehow, going 7 2/3, and that was pretty much all she wrote for the Cardinals. And then you see Jack Flaherty yesterday for the Cardinals, sort of their last chance. This guy that was so incredible in the second half, his ERA was under 1. He gives up 4 runs in the 3rd inning, which is the same amount of runs he gave up in the entire month of September. And it just sort of gave you the impression that the Cardinals had really have nothing left in them.
Corbin and Dakota Hudson going tonight for St. Louis in a possible closeout game. That's the late game. The early game, Jared Diamond, Astros-Yankees. This one has the makings of a great classic, back and forth type of series. We've seen it already. Garrett Cole, red hot. Luis Severino. Cole's 25 strikeouts in 2 starts. He has been just about as dominating as we've ever seen in a postseason. So this one here, which, by the way, we'll pick up at 6 o'clock. As soon as our show's over, we will pick this game up in progress. But right now, Astros-Yankees, I don't know if there's a way to lean, but what stands out about the style of this series so far?
Yeah, what I've been interested in this series so far is how Aaron Boone has handled the pitching staff. He has been incredibly aggressive, going and taking out his starters and going to the bullpen. He takes out Masahiro Tanaka after 6 incredible innings, and it looked like he had plenty more in the tank. And then in Game 2, he goes and gets James Paxton in the 3rd inning and sort of turns it over to that bullpen. And that sort of hurt the Yankees as that game went longer and they were running out Jay Happ and Jonathan Loizica and guys that they really probably preferred not to be putting into an important ALCS situation. And that's sort of why, as good as the Yankees are, and the Yankees are great, I still sort of lean toward the Astros just a little bit, and it's because of that starting rotation. We're going to see a lot tonight with Garrett Cole this afternoon if he's able to continue his remarkable postseason so far. But that's the one area the Yankees are unable to match. Their lineups, I would say, are pretty comparable. They're both really good lineups. The Yankees probably have a slightly, or maybe a significantly better bullpen, but that Astros rotation is just so dominant, and you just wonder if the Yankee lineup is going to be able to deal with Garrett Cole maybe twice and another game of Justin Verlander potentially.
So this is like a really interesting matchup of almost like identities, Jared, right? Because you have the Astros, who are considered on the forefront of analytics and how they use analytics in their everyday business. They've already won a World Series, and yet they're kind of going old school because they have the luxury of having three pitchers who can go 7-8 innings and they're going to ride them. And then here you have the Yankees, who can spend all the money in the world, and they have this wonderful offense, and they've got some decent pitchers, not like Astros, but as you mentioned, Aaron Boone is basically only hoping to get 4 to 5 good innings out of a starter, and then he's ready to go right to the bullpen. It's just so fascinating, the two different approaches for these teams given their identities leading into this postseason.
Yeah, it is, and it's not just on the field; it's also sort of their approaches off the field in recent years that have just been so fascinating, and in many ways been a flip of what you would expect. You look at the Astros over the last few years, and you think of them as this sort of bastion of analytics, and a GM who's incredibly numbers conscious and maybe a bit conservative, the way many sort of analytically leaning GMs are. Yet he has been incredibly aggressive, going out and really taking star players away right under the Yankees' nose. You think of Justin Verlander, a guy the Yankees could have acquired a few years back. They don't do it. Garrett Cole, another one the Yankees could have acquired. They don't do it. And instead, the Astros, incredibly aggressively with trading prospects and spending money to go get those two guys, and now they could be the difference in potentially knocking out the Yankees or deciding who gets to the World Series. Brian Cashman, who's been a phenomenal GM for so long, has really a lot riding on this team because he has, over the last few years, been incredibly cautious about spending in some ways. He has not gone out and acquired that big starting pitcher that many Yankee fans wanted him to. You look at Patrick Corbin, who's pitching tonight for the Nationals. That was a guy that many people, including myself, assumed was going to be on the Yankees this season for agency, and the Yankees decided not to do it. And I guess we're going to see now if Brian Cashman was right in not making that aggressive move for an ace.
Jared Diamond, Wall Street Journal, national baseball writer. Let's get your take on this Philly situation. They're going to bring in Dusty Baker, Joe Girardi, Buck Showalter. It kind of doesn't sound like the kind of guys that John Middleton was talking about in his hour-long press conference the other day when they really said they're behind the game in analytics. So what do you make of those three guys? Is any one of them the right guy for Philadelphia?
Yeah, it's kind of strange to say we're behind in analytics, to then fire a manager who, by manager standpoint, was sort of at the forefront of analytics, and then start looking for sort of an old school manager. It sort of makes me wonder if maybe analytics or lack thereof is not the problem for the Phillies. I think generally speaking, when you fire a manager, if you're going to fire a manager, you want to bring in sort of the opposite of what you're getting rid of. Otherwise, why fire the guy in the first place? And that's sort of what you're seeing here. With Jay Kapler, you had sort of an inexperienced, sort of younger manager who is sort of fluent in analytics. And now they seem to be looking for an older, experienced manager who's had success working with players before. And all the three people you mentioned that the Phillies are interested in, you can't go wrong with any of them. They're all accomplished managers. They're all very good managers. The question, of course, is whether it'll lead to a different result than what we've seen the last couple of years with the Phillies. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We'll see. But I don't think you can go wrong with either of those three people they're interviewing. They're all managers that had a lot of success and have sort of gone into difficult situations and found ways to turn it around.
Jared, what did you make of the Middleton press conference? I don't know how much of it you saw or may have read, but I know in Philadelphia a lot of us had interpreted it as a meddlesome owner who is a little bit Steinbrenner-esque with his impulsiveness and his desire to make the big decisions over his baseball people. And that scared a lot of people about the direction of this franchise.
Yeah, it would bother me if I were a Phillies fan. It was strange and unusual to see that put out in the open to the extent it was. you don't typically see publicly an owner and a GM essentially acknowledging that they disagreed, and the owner more or less overruled the front office. And generally speaking, that's not a great model when the owner is barging in and making decisions over his baseball people. I think the best owners are the ones that hire smart baseball people and let them do their jobs well, and they do nothing but sign the checks. So I understand why Phillies fans were maybe disheartened by what's gone on. It doesn't mean this is going to fail. This is going to fail. It doesn't mean it was the wrong decision. But, if that's sort of how John Middleton runs things, you start wondering what other situations has John Middleton done that in? How much of an impact, for instance, did John Middleton have in signing Bryce Harper over his baseball people? These are things I think you have to start wondering, because if it happened once, you figure it's probably happened more than once.
Real quick, Jared, you mentioned something about finding smart baseball people. Is the thought around baseball that the Phillies have that? Is Matt Klentak, Andy McPhail, are they regarded as that? Because a lot of people around here, they're wondering what McPhail even does, number one, as the team president. It doesn't seem like he's had much of a thumbprint on this team. And Matt Klentak seemingly has not had a very good 5 years in terms of rebuilding when you're bad for 5 years, you hope to see some fruits of the labor. Philly fans are wondering, where has the fruits of that bad baseball, where is that, and doesn't that fall on Klentak? Do they have the right baseball people in place?
Well, starting essentially today, it does fall on Matt Klentak. Matt Klentak fired a manager. You don't get another shot to hire another manager. This is his last chance. This is the last manager.
Well, it doesn't sound like he fired the manager. It sounds like somebody above him, because he wanted the manager to stay.
Fair point. But if you're the owner, you know that this is not going to be able to continue for Matt Klentak.
Right, he hired a manager that the owner did not want to keep.
That's true. That says a lot, and that's going to sort of play. I'm sure those are negative brownie points in the eyes of John Middleton about Matt Klentak. That, hey, he may have trusted Matt Klentak to hire a manager last time. Didn't work out in the eyes of John Middleton. Whether that's fair or not is sort of irrelevant. The owner seems to believe it wasn't working out. So, yeah, I think Matt Klentak is going to start being on sort of the hot seat now. He has been here for a while. You have not quite seen the results you'd want, and eventually there are consequences for that. Do people in baseball respect Matt Klentak? Yeah, I think generally his reputation isn't terrible, but like you said, at some point there need to be results. No one could survive through not having results for too long in this industry. So it's got to happen for them soon. And what's been very disappointing for the Phillies is the last 2 years, it looked like they were sort of moving in the right direction, and it all kind of fell apart at the end. And at the end of the day, they still haven't been over 500 now since 2011. That's a long time ago as we head into 2020.
Hey, Jared, real quick, as we look forward to the offseason, obviously Garrett Cole, who's been so great this postseason, will be probably the number one ticket on the free agent market. A lot of Phillies fans want to get him because they need pitching here badly. I am on the record as saying last year was a little bit rare and special in that the Cubs, the Angels, the Yankees, and the Red Sox kind of took offseason off. Those normally would be guys that chase the Machados and the Harpers of the world. How difficult will it be, do you think, for the Phillies to once again be able to kind of capitalize on that and get the big ticket free agent?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Garrett Cole's going to command a ton of money. He seems to be earning more money every single time he takes the mound in the playoffs, and there's certainly going to be a lot of interest in him. The Yankees, I'm sure, are going to be interested in him. The Angels will be interested in him, although the way things are with the Angels right now, for other reasons, you kind of wonder what's happening with that organization, if that will scare off potential free agents. But there's going to be a lot of interest in Cole. But there are other big free agents out there that is going to have a lot of interest. Anthony Rendon's a free agent. He's going to command a lot of money. The other thing to remember is that potentially we could see Steven Strasburg on the market. Not really getting talked about as much, but he has an opt-out in his contract. He could use it. He's had a great postseason. Who knows? He hasn't obviously indicated one way or the other what he's going to want to do. But, if Garrett Cole and Steven Strasburg are both on the market, that's two big pitchers for the Phillies to potentially pursue. So it's going to be tough, but the Phillies have certainly not shied away from spending. So if they're willing to shell out the big bucks, they could have one of these guys.
Jared Diamond, national baseball writer at Wall Street Journal. Before we let you run, is there a managerial name? Because here's the thing. In baseball, it feels like teams are finding guys who have never managed before and have no coaching experience. Is there an exciting name that you think will be out there on the market for these 8 open jobs?
Yeah, for me, it's Joe Espada, the Astros bench coach. The Astros get rated every single year. It seems like their coaches in front office executives get hired away from the Astros to better positions every single season. The last bench coach they had, obviously, is Alex Cora, who went on to win the World Series in his first year, and now Joe Espada is next. I'd be surprised if Espada does not get one of these managerial openings, and I think he'd be a great candidate for whoever hires him. Just working for the Astros alone seems to qualify you for promotion at this point.
Right, it's like knowing Sean McVay in the football world.
Yes.
Jared Diamond, national baseball writer, Wall Street Journal, at Jared Diamond. Don't forget, coming up at 4 o'clock, it's the first pitch. We will pick up the Yankees and Astros at 6 p.m. So as soon as we're done, you'll hear the continuation, the conclusion, I guess, of that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Jared, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And
Thanks,
Jared
Jared.
Diamond, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.